Those poor souls sure are pitiful, aren't they?
Lisa, the disdainful daughter-in-law, never misses a chance to look down on me with scorn, even though she's a grown woman in her 40s. Every time she visits our house with my son, she has a sarcastic remark ready for me. Not long ago, it was my husband's birthday. While I was busy preparing the meals, she just sat in the kitchen, under the pretense of helping, constantly bad-mouthing me. However, whenever she'd see my son or husband, she'd quickly change her tone, take some food I prepared to the living room, but then quickly return to her jabs. But when she's in front of my husband and son, Lisa suddenly turns into the perfect daughter-in-law. It's as if she's putting on a show of how considerate she can be. In their presence, she'd offer to help me and chat with a bright smile, oozing charm. Who could have imagined that this two-faced nature of Lisa would ever be exposed to my son and husband? You'll learn soon enough that the world isn't as forgiving as you think. My name is Rosalind. I'm 70, but my husband Mateus and I still enjoy our little adventures. Our son Anthony is a 43-year-old office worker, married to Lisa for about 5 years now. Before getting married, Anthony had moved out, and for a while, it was just Mateus and me at home. Then, out of the blue, Anthony brought Lisa home, mentioning they were seriously considering marriage. We were quite taken aback, as he had never brought anyone home like that before. Turns out, Lisa's father runs a well-known company, making her somewhat of a princess. One can't help but wonder how my son met someone like Lisa. We live in a small town, and that company is the most popular grocery store in the neighborhood. The company's employees, including, of course, Lisa's father, often shop there, and I frequent the place myself. Anthony sometimes stops by to shop on his way home from work. Maybe their paths crossed there without my knowledge. I haven't gotten the full story, but apparently Lisa's father took a liking to Anthony and initiated the match with Lisa. At first, seeing Lisa's graceful demeanor, my husband and I were thrilled, but we soon discovered her truly unpleasant nature. The couple lives just a short 10-minute drive away, so they visit often. Mateus and I love visiting antique bookstores. Upon learning this, Lisa once scoffed, "Why bring home such old junk, collecting trash?" Knowing I like to walk to shops, even if they're a bit far, she'd mockingly laugh. "Can't afford bus or train fare? How poor can you be?" She only spouts these insults when my husband and son aren't around. She's meticulous about spewing venom only when she's certain I'm the sole audience. For instance, when Mateus begins to rave about our antique bookstore visits, she'd gleam, saying, "Old items have a unique charm, don't they? It's fascinating to connect with things lost to time. Such a wonderful hobby." And if Anthony mentions my routine walks to the store, she'd chime in with, "It's nice on the way there, but the walk back is tiring. Yet you walk every single time, Rosalind. You're so health conscious. I genuinely hope you live long." This facade putting on her best face for men and showing her true colors to women is aggravating. Such behavior, especially towards those of the same gender, is highly dislikable. When I was stressed over the dynamics in the neighborhood association, she once quipped, "Why not just charm the men? Perhaps it's too late at your age." Although I have little interest in Lisa's social life, she chatters so much that I inadvertently end up learning about it. Despite being in her 40s, Lisa seems to have no female friends and mostly discusses her relationships with men. Recently, despite Anthony working, she left all household tasks to a housekeeping service. She spent her entire day with young men. Her defense? "I'm currently running a youth development seminar, teaching these young entrepreneurs the ropes of business management." From what I hear from Anthony, she barely understands her own family business. So what could she possibly be teaching these young businessmen? I've been concerned about Anthony's marital life, but considering his age, I felt it wasn't my place to probe. I've always turned a blind eye. Then one day, as I was about to head out shopping, Lisa called. It's quite rare for Lisa to call, so when my phone rang, an uneasy feeling took hold, but I answered.
Hello, Rosalind? What are you up to? Probably nothing, right?
Her tone, dripping with condescension, made my skin crawl, but I urged her to get to the point.
I need you to swing by my house and collect a delivery for me,
she chirped. At her sheer audacity, I considered hanging up, but no one to be walked over, I replied. Sorry, I'm headed to the store and then I have a neighborhood association meeting. Please handle your own deliveries. Her mood soured instantly.
It's just some old folks gathering, isn't it? Drop that mundane chore and do me this one small favor.
I was taken aback. The neighborhood association is serious work. As for your delivery, you should manage your time. If you can't, perhaps ask for a re-delivery. Currently, I'm serving as the vice president of the neighborhood association. Members rotate responsibilities, and this year it was our turn. During our gatherings, we assign roles like president, vice president, treasurer, and etc., and plan community events. I had unexpectedly been appointed vice president, and today was our meeting day. I couldn't possibly miss it for any trivial reason. Somehow, Lisa believed my involvement was due to sheer boredom, and she often insinuated that I was a penny pincher. Now clearly annoyed that I countered her, she lashed out.
You could have just come over. I'm meeting friends and desperately want my highly sought-after cosmetics delivered today.
Her trivialities weren't my concern, and I wasn't going to keep her precious item. As I reached the store, I tried to end the call. Lisa, frustrated that I wasn't doing as she wanted, snapped.
You're so useless. Always busy for someone who claims to have no money. It's pitiful how poor and low class you are.
And abruptly hung up. Hearing her say that infuriated me. However, calling back would only take more of my time, which would make me late for the upcoming meeting, so I decided to let it go. Days went by without any apology from Lisa, leaving me contemplating whether to tell Anthony about the incident. Instead, I decided to discuss it with Mateus first. Upon hearing my concerns, Mateus remarked, I thought so. I've sensed that about her for a while, but she's always so charming around me and Anthony. It seemed Mateus had his reservations about Lisa's character too. He never saw it firsthand, so he was unsure how to address it. What do you want to do, Rosalind? I'll support whatever you decide. I considered our options with Anthony's well-being at the forefront. If he was content in his marriage with Lisa, I didn't want to jeopardize that. Thus, I decided to keep an eye on things for now and not bring it up. When I told Mateus this, he simply nodded in understanding, suggesting, If Anthony ever has issues, he can always come to us for advice. With that, I decided to write it down in my diary, as I always do. A few days later, Anthony called. Apparently, Lisa's younger sister, Olive, was getting married. He wanted us to attend the wedding. Is that okay? He asked. I always had a good impression of Olive. Unlike Lisa, Olive was sweet and polite. She worked at her father's company, and we'd often chat whenever we ran into each other at the store. She always came to chat with me whenever she spotted me. She came to Anthony and his wife's wedding, greeting us warmly and showing proper manners to all other relatives. It's baffling how different two siblings can be. Hearing about the wedding made me just as happy as when my own son got married. My husband and I nodded in agreement and decided to casually ask our son about his married life with Lisa. Well, he hesitated and then went silent for a while. When I told him he can always talk to us about anything, he responded vaguely and quickly hung up. A few months later, it was time for Olive's wedding day. During those months, Anthony and his wife did visit us, but Lisa never apologized or even came close to me. Not that I minded. And then, the the day of the wedding arrived. As the reception started, it was clear that Lisa had too much to drink and was pretty tipsy by the middle of it. But Lisa, being Lisa, didn't want to ruin her sister's big day and behaved herself until the end. After the reception, with her face flushed red, Lisa approached me. With a sinister smile, she looked me up and down. As I was about to ask her if there was a problem, she spoke first.
Hey, poor thing, did you bring a wedding gift? Wearing that shabby outfit? I guess poor people like used stuff, huh?
She slurred her words because of the alcohol, but her disdain was clear. Maybe it was the alcohol talking, but she was acting big not just in front of me, but also my husband and other relatives. From the corner of my eye, I could see my husband's puzzled expression. Lisa's comments were enough to stir whispers among the relatives. Some stared at her, others looked pale and shocked. But Lisa, undeterred, continued.
Even at your age, working a part-time job to make money and still wearing such a tacky dress is pathetic. Look at my beautiful dress. Guess that's all you can afford.
Amid her boisterous laughter, Olive, looking upset, stepped in. It seemed the loud conversation had caught Olive's attention.
Hey sis, what are you saying?
Though Olive scolded her, Lisa for a moment looked guilty, but quickly reverted to her spiteful self.
Just look, Olive. That dress looks so old and secondhand. Do you not know? This dress was specially ordered for our wedding.
Yes, this dress, out of respect for Olive, who I love dearly, was custom-made for this celebration. And the jewelry I wore with it? Timeless pieces that will shine forever. I've been considering gifting this jewelry to Olive as a celebration gift. Before the ceremony began, I visited Olive to offer my personal congratulations. Olive, being the observant person she is, did not miss noticing my dress and jewelry. We talked about it, and I mentioned my plans to pass them on to her. Naturally, Olive declined the offer, but considering her like a daughter to me, I insisted, and she eventually accepted, tears in her eyes. Ideally, I would have done this for Lisa, however, due to her continuous actions, the thought never crossed my mind. Upon hearing Olive's words, Lisa's mood shifted dramatically. She snatched a glass from our table, wine sloshing dangerously close to the rim.
Why would you do that for Olive? It should be for me.
The wine was on the verge of spilling from the high-raised glass. Before she could make a scene, Anthony and the groom intervened. "What the hell are you doing, Lisa?" Shouting back, Lisa became even more defensive. In her agitation, she spilled wine all over herself. All present watched in stunned silence as wine dripped from her chin. Recovering quickly, Lisa's face went pale.
This dress was expensive to rent.
Shouting loudly, she grabbed a nearby cloth and began wiping her dress with it. That cloth was the tablecloth from our table, and it quickly soaked up the wine, turning a deep shade of red.
You ruined my dress. You better pay for the dry cleaning. Just because you're poor doesn't mean you get a pass.
At her unjustified outburst, Anthony finally lost his patience. Holding her arm, he shouted, "You keep calling her poor, but you know the company you're living off of? It's supported by both her and Dad." Hearing those words, Lisa stood in shock, mouth agape. We've never had financial troubles. Before my husband retired, he worked for a major corporation, and while he was away, I took an interest in the stock market. But just studying it became mundane. So I started buying a little stock to get hands-on experience. Fortunately, I was able to profit from those stocks. Eventually, when our son got married, I decided to invest in the company of the two fathers from the dividends I had received over the years. I wasn't expecting anything in return. I just wanted to show my gratitude for all the help they've given our son. Almost everyone at the venue knew about my investment, so they all gave Lisa cold stares because of her recent rude behavior. Anthony was furious, and Olive looked distressed. Lisa took a few steps back, her eyes darting around.
Lies. All lies. There's no way this poor woman could do that.
Still referring to me as poor, Anthony clenched his fists in anger, ready to lash out, while Olive shook her head on the verge of tears.
Enough, Lisa! You've never even worked a day in your life, and yet you're acting so rude to Rosalind and calling her poor. Do you know she's been helping my father's company to make sure they don't face any difficulties?
My mom has always been planning for a future, yet you, behind closed doors, you've always treated her horribly. The venue fell silent, the cold glares directed at Lisa, the sympathetic looks for me. No one was on Lisa's side anymore. Perhaps sobered up by the situation, Lisa sank to her knees, head drooping. Anthony knelt beside her, and while we all thought he might console her, he instead said, "Lisa, this is the last straw. I want a divorce." She immediately looked up, refusing, like a child. Holding on to Anthony's arm, Lisa finally broke down in tears. Everyone began to leave the scene. Some gave me concerned glances, while others looked away. While I caught glimpses of various reactions around me, I kept my gaze fixed on Lisa. Up to this point, Lisa hadn't apologized to me even once. Despite discussions of divorce with Anthony, she still hadn't said sorry. Anthony took Lisa to another room. She didn't even glance my way.
Rosalind, I'm so sorry. I had no idea my sister was treating you this way.
Olive said, tears welling up in her eyes. Seeing Olive continually apologize, on the verge of tears, honestly, it tugged at my heartstrings. You don't have to apologize, Olive. If anything, I'm sorry for ruining such a special celebration. Olive looked so down, and seeing that made me feel quite gloomy too. Sharing a look with the groom nearby, I decided to head to a separate room for a bit. Later, Olive and I had a brief chat before calling it a night. Since then, I've run into Olive a few times at the local grocery store. Every time we meet, her smile grows brighter, and that's a comfort. As for Lisa, she never did come to apologize. From what Anthony told me, when he broached the subject of divorce, Lisa put up a fight. However, he was firm, and she eventually signed the divorce papers. Following that, Lisa, having been evicted from the condo they shared, seemed to be planning to move back in with her parents. But her father, having witnessed her behavior at the wedding, severely reprimanded her, and it seems kicked her out of the family home too. When Anthony returned home alone the day after the wedding, my husband and I got the whole story about Lisa. I held back some details and only shared recent incidents, but both my husband and son were upset. Anthony probably reported it to his father-in-law. A few days later, both parents came to apologize. I assured them it was all water under the bridge and promised to continue supporting them with a smile. I'm not sure where Lisa is now. Anthony hasn't been in touch since the divorce. She's probably taken refuge with one of her male friends. A few years have passed since my son's tumultuous divorce, and he's found someone new. His current wife is very polite and courteous, and we occasionally meet up for tea. She gets along well with my husband too, sometimes borrowing from his rare book collection. The two of them often indulge in conversations about books over tea. As for Olive, despite the tumultuous event, her relationship with her husband seems strong. Just the other day, I heard she's expecting. I look forward to spending happy days with my husband, thinking about a baby gift for Olive and her soon-to-be family.